All right, everybody. We're going to do another gun review because I got a good one. I've got maybe what might be one of the best, actually. So, first we'll talk about why I've got these out. Because lately I've been on a kick for military issue pistols from different eras, different countries, things like that. So we've got our current military has adopted either the M17, which is what this is with the 5-inch barrel, 4.9, whatever, or you've got the 4.8-inch barrel, the 4-inch barrel, which is the M18. So basically the same pistols. Mine I have upgraded to the Wilson Combat grip frame, which takes 40 seconds to install. Just gives it a little bit more of a 1911-ish feel, a little narrow in the grip, and your hand, it just seems to gel with my hand more. I think these are like $90 just to add the plastic piece. It already comes with the trigger release and all that stuff. So that gives you your current military pistol for the U.S. Armed Forces, or at least a variant of it. And then, of course, you've got the venerable M9 that it replaced. Now, this one is made by Gerson. However, it is made in a NATO factory on the actual Beretta tooling and machinery. So it is an exact copy, licensed from Beretta. This is the Gerson Regard MC, which is basically the M9A1. So a beautiful, smooth, just an excellent gun. Decocker, single action, double action, takes down, it's all interchangeable with Beretta parts, except for they did modify something on the locking lug. I think that's the only thing is the barrel, but everything else is interchangeable. So that replaced that. This replaced that. And of course, before that, you had the M1911 A1. Now, I've got one here from Taurus, which I like a lot, made here in Bainbridge, Georgia. And you know, every collection needs to have one of these. So I've also got one. I've got a Springfield M1911A1 in stainless. They're loaded edition. I like them both. That one's got a bunch of miles on it. That one's got a lot of rounds through it. I had it for years. And then my good friend Joe had it for many years and was his favorite gun. And when he passed away last year, actually now coming up on 2 years ago from COVID, his family gave that gun back to me. So that one is staying in my collection. That will stay with me till the day I die, and then I will pass that on to somebody else. So anyway, so that's your other military pistol. Now, the other one, the one that I reviewed more recently, was same company, Gerson, that made this one right here. They also make a Browning high power clone. So I've got that, and I love this. I did add the VZ grips. Well, it's another brand off Amazon, but basically the VZ grips, similar to what I added on here. And that is your Browning high power, which was used by military and police all over the world. And I believe, you go to some countries like Argentina or in South America, some places in Europe and the Middle East, they're still using this. I mean, the Browning high power was the first real high capacity, double stack, 9mm semi-automatic duty gun, and was also the brainchild largely of John Moses Browning. That's why it's called the Browning high power, but the same genius who created the 1911. This all sets the table and brings us to the next one. So I've got another military pistol. And you may think, what other official military pistols could there be? Well, the one I'm going to bring out is used more than this, although this one's relatively new. It was more widely used than the M9. It was also more issued to police and military around the world than either the 1911 or the Browning high power. You're like, what is this gun? What is this gun that's been issued? It's more iconic than these. These ones may have gotten more attention, but they were not issued standard issue as much as this other one. What is that? CZ. The CZ75 that came out in 1975 been a lot of variants over the years, was based, and we're going to keep this one out because it's based largely off of the high power with a bunch of improvements. But you'll see the similarities. Now, the specific one that I got is, I think, the best CZ out there you can buy until you get up into their $4,000 competition gun. But as far as a home protection gun, as far as a concealed carry gun, although it's larger on the side, on the concealed carry scale, it's the P01. So there's two versions of this, two variations. These are aluminum framed. There's the P01, which is what the Czech police requested and said, look, can you make it smaller? We want to still have high capacity. I think they're 14 or 15 round mags. 15 round mags. Needs to be able to handle plus P. It needs to be an aluminum frame. We need to drop a bunch of weight off of it and make it a little bit more compact and easier to carry. Oh, and we want a decocker. You know, when you're loading and unloading and carrying a cocked and locked and dropping the hammer, there's always the chance that, you know, you let the hammer and it slips out of your finger. Maybe there's oil and touches off a round. So we want a decocker. And then the first shot will be single action and then double action. This is an unloaded pistol, brand new out of the box. Haven't even put the mags in it. So the CZ75 comes with lock, manual, bore brush, although it's plastic, unlike the Gersan. There's a bore brush for your cleaning patches and things. The Gersan I really like because they throw in bronze or brass bristles. So what have we got? We've got a 26.8 or 27 ounce gun, so it's only an ounce or two heavier than a Glock 19. But it's an all metal frame, single double action with a decocker. Nice rubber grips. These are interchangeable. You can go get other grips, but I actually kind of like the rubber, although I might get something like that. But you can see the family resemblance here. Now, had I gotten a CZ75B, you would have just the small dust cover with the end exposed. There'd be different contours to it, but you would look at that slide and go, I know where the CZ got that slide from. Let's drop the hammer all the way down. What they did was they took the high power, they put the slide more in line inside the frame. So instead of when you look at all these other guns, you have, it goes into the frame, but then the slide kind of overhangs. The slide is physically bigger. What that does is it makes you move the barrel up on top. It makes the slide wider. There's more metal. It's heavier. It also moves that barrel up so that that bore axis sits higher than your hand, which means when it goes boom, it's going to go up more than back. That's why that Chiappa Rhino revolver I've got has the cylinder firing out the bottom cylinder, not the top. So that way it's pushing straight back and the gun doesn't jump. It just goes like this. It's really cool. Go watch the video on that. So what do they do? Well, they added a lanyard thing here. I don't know if that's removable. It might be. The grips are easily interchangeable with, there's a bunch of aftermarket grips and things like that from Hogue and VZ. If you want, you can get all kinds of fancy stuff. This gun has amazingly rich heritage. I don't know if you know, I almost said Chuck Yeager, and it's not Chuck Yeager. That was the test pilot. Broke the sound barrier. Not Clint Smith. There's a very famous gun guy, instructor, Chuck something. Damn it. I'll put it in the link in the description if I find it. Anyway, in his estimation, now he was a huge John Moses Browning fan. He was an old-time shooter. He said the best combat gun of the last century was the CZ75. It's a phenomenal gun. The way that this frame, the slide itself fits down into the frame is the wider part. This sits down in. Now, at times, that gives you a little less to grip on, but see how much more metal is above the frame? When you look at a 1911, you see how it's really tall and that barrel's up there. This is what makes this such a nice shooter. There's no rock. It's a full-length guide rail. The rail system is all the way out. You do have the ability here to put on, a little tactical light or something if you want. I don't really use them. Limit your holster options. It's got a simple 3-dot sight system. They're nothing to write home about. Luckily, they are pinned and dovetailed in, so I will probably go get a set of Ameriglows or something that are fiber optic and bright in the daytime, but then are night sights at night, so you're not, giving up one or the other. They'll be good at both. These are just a simple 3-dot sight. They'll work, but I'm definitely I'll probably upgrade those. Single and double action. So again, do a safety check, no magazine, no rounds. Your first shot, not a bad trigger pull, fairly smooth. It's stiffer, but it's going to be. It's not any. It's actually a little bit better than the M9 I've got over there. You can half cock it if you want, and now you've got an even shorter first trigger pull. But then after that, every time that slide's going to rack, and it's a short take up. There's some creep in it, but it's actually very smooth. Cajun Gunworks makes a lot of good upgrades for these. You could put a flat bow trigger in there and make it like almost like a 1911 sort of feel. But that feels good. Trigger reset. Some travel, but then it's a very light pull. This is a nice. I've had CZ75s. I've owned a lot of guns. We're talking somewhere in the vicinity of 400 to 450, maybe not over 500, but we're up well over 400 in my lifetime. The CZ75s that I've owned over the years, and I've always regretted getting rid of them. And I don't know. I do it because I'm like, I'll just get something different. And need room in the safe, and so if something's going to come in, something's got to go out. I always end up regretting getting rid of the CZ75s. They are among the nicest, most accurate shooting guns I've ever owned. And I've had some nice guns. Now, I'm not talking, Wilson Combat or Ed Brown or, some fine, high-end tuned 1911s and competition guns. But I mean like normal, everyday guns that are, $1,000 or less. The CZ75 is shot at the top. They're just amazingly ergonomic. I like the extended beaver tail. This is the compact, but I can just get my pinky on there, and now I have my entire hand on there. It's an all-metal gun, but it's, again, not that heavy. It's got that aluminum frame, and because when you look at the amount of steel, the slide is small. The slide is narrow. Most of the metal is the frame. So when you get the CZ75B that's all steel, it's a bit of a paperweight, but it shoots real well. But as a duty gun, when you've got that kind of belt and all your other equipment, maybe it doesn't make a difference. But if I was going to conceal carry, I wanted this. So this has got the improved trigger that they came out with the P01. It gets rid of the safety. So here, drop an empty mag, no mag. There, you've got that safety you can engage, and so no bang. You got to drop the safety. So you would carry this cocked and locked like your 1911. Once that hammer has dropped, even though that looks like a regular trigger, unlike a 1911, this is still a single action only. There's no way to fire the gun unless you cock the hammer. And it's got a really stiff spring, so doing it one-handed, you almost got to be careful because you got to hold the gun well enough, but you want to keep your finger out of there so you don't, So that's the only downside I see to the high power is that, yeah, you've got that manual safety that doesn't have, but this one has to be carried cocked and locked, or you have to rack it as you draw it, or, whatever. I would prefer to have the decocker, hence why I went for that. And when you use the decocker, it's in that half-cocked position. There's no way to hit that. When you pull the trigger, it doesn't drop the hammer. There's no way for it to hit that and hit the primer or anything like that. It's got a disconnect bar in there, or a transfer bar. But now I've got that first. Again, we're just going to double check here because I am a safety Nazi, even though I have no ammo in it. But when you decock that, now you got that first trigger pull, which is still single action, but it's a shortened, abbreviated single action because that hammer's already half cocked. You just finish it the rest of the way instead of pulling it all that way. That trigger now engages right there, and it's a very short pull. And then after that, you've got your real short pull. Really like it. Taking it down is very simple. You've got these two lines right there. You pull those forward so that they are lined up. Oops, without smacking into your camera and making everybody seasick. Again. And then you take something that's non-marking. Use the plastic piece on that. And just tap that out. And wiggle that bad boy out. That comes down. You do not have to drop the hammer. You don't have access to go in. You just take it apart and clean it. This is, let's see, is that a captive guide rod? No, it is not. And it is plastic. So that is going to be something that I do upgrade. I'm going to get the steel guide rod. We're taking this down because I'm going to go ahead and oil it. I use P01 synthetic motorcycle oil. Figure if it holds up inside a motor at hundreds and hundreds of degrees and 16,000 RPMs and all that stuff, it'll probably do well in between cleanings, you know, on your missile. But when you take that slide off, like, there's a lot of metal here, but this is all aluminum. This doesn't weigh hardly anything. I mean, it's incredibly light. So anyway, this is my latest acquisition. Now, I did go and get rid of a gun to get this one. I had two of those Shadow Systems, the MR920s. So I just went ahead. I had one in tan and one in black. I kept the black one because it had the really cool fluted barrel that was like a bronze color, really, really neat looking. So I went and kept that one. And then we're just going to put a little oil here. I kept the black one. And so, yeah, that's what we've got. So there's a lot of upgrades. Cajun Gunworks has triggers and guide rods and all kinds of stuff, grips. So I'm going to be hitting their website shortly and see what kind of stuffs I can get. And then maybe I'll do some videos on that. So just go ahead, line those up, snap that in. Very nice. I love this gun. Also got to find a holster for it. Because this one is one I might carry from time to time. Being that it's roughly the same size and weight as my Shadow Systems, Glock 19. No reason not to carry that. They just shoot so well. I got to get to the range. I've got to do a shooting video. All I'm doing are tabletop stuff these days. But I got to get some of this stuff to the range because I've got some guns that are going to shoot remarkably well. And this is going to be one of the best, especially for a compact. The accuracy on these things is almost legendary. So this is the modified, upgraded version of the CZ75B. And that gun, and this, because this has been issued to police departments all around the world, is in a lot of ways, while it isn't as famous, it's actually more widely used and issued than the good old 1911. So this thing weighs a freaking ton. It's all steel. This weighs at least half a pound. This is probably like a 38 to 40 ounce gun. This is 27. I mean, we're talking about 3/4 of a pound lighter. It is significant. Now, this high power is fairly light because that's also an aluminum frame, but the frame is also smaller. That's a lot of steel. Look at the slide. That is a lot of steel with a very small frame. This is small slide, which is the steel, the heavy part, and the bulk of the metal is the aluminum. And that's why this thing is just ridiculously light for its size. You pick it up and you're looking at it going, oof, that's going to be a beefy little tank. And then you're like, oh, actually, this doesn't weigh a whole lot. So thanks to the use of alloy. So that is it. That is the CZ75, but it's the P01. It's the police version. This is what they requested. They wanted these enhancements made to it. And CZ obliged and made a great... this was adopted, I think, by NATO. Also, the P01, I've got to look at the history of this. But this was adopted, I think they submitted it in 2003, went through ridiculously rigorous testing. So the U.S. Army, when they were selecting guns and stuff, the average mean time between rounds, or between the amount of rounds that they would accept and allow a failure, it was like for something, let's just say it was 500. It was like you're allowed to have one failure for every 500 rounds fired. Okay, that was the ratio. So that's a a fraction of, was it a 0.025 failure rate or something? When NATO put this to the test, it failed 1 out of every 2,100 times. The reliability that it tested at, and they didn't just test one, they tested a bunch of them. When they averaged them out, the average failure rate was 1/4 of the requirements for the US military to get that approved. This is a phenomenally good weapon. The fact that it points well, the ergos are spot on, it's comfortable. These aren't plastic, these are rubber. These are actually very comfortable. Will probably help soak up a little bit of the recoil because it is a light gun, so it's gonna be snappy. But having that decocker, so you can safely drop the hammer, unlike these where you pretty much, once that hammer is back, you're gonna have to carry it cocked and locked, or you're gonna have to lightly drop it and hope you don't slip and touch off a round and shoot a hole in the floor. You know, these are great guns, but I like the security of the decocker, and I like the single action first shot. That's why I like this, right? Same thing here. God, that thing is smooth. But anyway, decocker, boom. Safety, so nothing happens. If you want to fire it, again, I know I just checked it, but I'm just so safety oriented. First round, and then after that, now that has a short reset and a lighter trigger. I would say this trigger's better on this one. Click, and then it's a little bit lighter. Not by much, not a lot. But we'll see how these both break in. None of these guns have been shot. I have all these guns I haven't shot. This one hasn't been shot. So I got to get to the goddamn range. Anyway, that's enough babbling for now. I know I'm kind of gushing like a fanboy over this thing, but you know, I'm looking at all the different pistols. I'm like, I didn't need 2 shadow systems. I've got that covered. I've got all my carry guns covered. I really wanted another military pistol to kind of fill out my my collection here. And I was like, I got to have the CZ75. But then when I was looking at them, I'm like, well, do I want the CZ75 full size? Or do I want to get the compact? Because the full-size one is a phenomenal shooter, but it also tends to weigh a lot. I'm like, well, this would make a good nightstand gun, and in a pinch, if I needed to carry that, 15 rounds, I think it's 15 plus 1, spare mag in the pocket, it's a lot of firepower, and it's a proven shooter, so... Anyway, that's where we are today. That's the new edition, CZ-P01. I might have gotten the PCR if they had one, because the PCR had Novak sights, and it didn't have the accessory rail. I don't care about the accessory rail. That would have dropped a tiny bit of weight. Not much. We're talking just a fraction of an ounce. Would have just slimmed that down just a little bit. And it had the Novak sights, which I actually liked a bit better, but inventory still, you know, a lot of gun places are starting to get inventory back, but, you know, it's still slim pickings on what's actually available. So I was like, the weight is about the same, maybe a 1/4 of an ounce heavier, but I can make that work, and I can always replace the sights with whatever I want. And at least that's an option, even if I never use it. But what a fantastic feeling gun. If you haven't shot one of these, find somebody that has one. Go shoot one at a range. Every CZ I've ever shot, other than a CZ100 I had way back in the day, that was like one of their first polymer striker-fired pistols. That had a trigger like dragging a shovel through broken glass or rocks. It was not a good trigger. It was reliable enough, but had a horrible trigger. All the CZ75 variants I've ever tried, really, really nice. That having that barrel, that extra part of an inch down, and you know, more towards the bore axis, man, really makes a difference on recoil, fast follow-up shots. There's no rocking. There's nothing going on in there. A lot of other guns, like the SIG, you know, there's play in there. Because when you take the slide off, you're going to find, here, let's just do that real quick. Oop. Rotate that down, take it off. The slide's only contacting there, and there. That's it. You got the grooves going all the way through there, but that is only actually making contact on those 4 small points. As a result, there's a lot of slide play. This one, no slide play. Full length, all the way down. The 1911. Little bit of slide play, not a lot. The Browning High Power, not a lot. This thing, none. There's no slide play in there. It's just a really good implementation. The tolerances and the machining on this are really spot on. So, all right, now I'm done gushing. Go watch your regularly scheduled program. Let me go put all my toys away. But that is the new CZ P01. Didn't go with a clone this time like I did with the Gerson, like I did with the M9. I would have bought a TriStar. I've had TriStars before. I think they're as good as the CZs. They're phenomenal. But I happened to find it. I traded in the other gun, which covered most of it, and didn't really cost me much to upgrade to the CZ to get the legit P01. So anyway, hope you enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. If you don't have friends, go get friends.